All right, so before we move on to organic chemistry, let's take a step back and just talk about what chemistry is. So remember that all matter is made of atoms, right? So everything you can touch and feel is made out of tiny little particles called atoms. And in the center of these atoms is a nucleus. And the nucleus is made out of protons. And the protons have a +1 charge. And they have a mass of approximately 1 atomic mass unit, 1 AMU. And then it's also made out of neutrons. And neutrons are neutral, and they also weigh approximately 1 AMU. And then flying around this nucleus are our electrons. Oftentimes for electron, I'll use the symbol E-. So if I write E-, that's an electron. It has a charge of -1. It has a much smaller mass than 1 atomic mass unit, so it's relatively light compared to the nucleus, but it's much faster than the nucleus. And so remember that when we're talking about an atom, the nucleus makes up the mass of the atom, while the electrons make up the volume of an atom. And this picture is not shown to size. In real life, the nucleus is tiny and the electrons make up most of the volume of the atom, right? So in real life, if the nucleus was the size of a blueberry, the electrons, the area that they're whizzing around, their orbitals, would be the size of a football stadium. And so remember that we organize all of these atoms into elements, and then we place them on our periodic table of elements. That's organized very nicely and is very useful. So this top row right here is our groups. And so you can see them numbered from 1 to 18. Another time you'll see them labeled as this one's 1A, this one's 2A. And then we skip over the transition metals into 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, and 8A. In organic chemistry, we don't use too much of the transition metals. And then this vertical row here, these are the periods, right? So period 1, period 2, period 3 elements. And then remember that what makes an element a certain identity, what makes a hydrogen, a carbon, a nitrogen, is just the number of protons, right? So the number of protons determines the identity of the element. So if you have 1 proton, you are hydrogen. If you have 2 protons, then you become helium. Right? Doesn't matter how many electrons, how many neutrons you have. What determines the identity of an element is the number of protons. And when we're talking about just regular old chemistry, and by regular, I mean non-nuclear chemistry, so not nuclear chemistry. All we're doing is just moving electrons. And so that means that the proton and the neutron, the nucleus, is unaffected. And so we don't change the identity of the element. Right? We're only moving around electrons, right? Our carbon is always going to be carbon. We're not going to turn it into gold or any other element. We're just moving around these electrons.